and thank you for taking the time to watch my micro teaching assignment. My name is Jennifer, and it has been a pleasure working with all of you this week. We're going to be covering the topics of social cognitive, self-concept, and moral development. We will also have a few activities along the way, so if you need to pause and grab some paper and something to write with, do that now for me. Okay, so for the first activity, I want you to think about parent-teacher conferences. We almost always have that one parent that is shocked at how well behaved their child is in school. They often state that the child has had a hard time listening or following rules at home, and they're always up to mischief. Or at least this is something that I've experienced. Now, I want you to think about that one child. Although there may be more than one for the purpose of this activity, I just need you to list one child, and it doesn't have to be a student that you currently have, but maybe in a year prior. We're going to use this information at the end of the lesson, so let's begin with a brief overview of some important dates in the history of education. Okay, so the first American schools in the 13 original colonies opened in the 17th century. Boston Latin School was founded in 1635. Now, in order to go to this school, the students were all male, and those who attended it was believed that they were going to be destined to hold a leadership position. Now, being male didn't mean you could automatically get into the school. One of the criteria to attend was based on your social class, and then obviously you had to be white. It wasn't then until 1823 when Catherine Beecher founded and opened the Hartford Female Seminary, which was a private school for girls. And then 1837, you have Mount Holyoke Female Seminary opens, which was a college for women. Followed that same year was the African Institute, which is the oldest institute for higher learning for African Americans. The Department of Education is finally created in 1867 in order to help establish effective education school systems. So let's fast forward to 1962, which really wasn't that long ago. This is when Lev Vygotsky, his book Thoughts and Language, was introduced to schools in the United States. The information in that book is still relevant today. Sometimes it feels like all of this stuff happened a billion years ago. But in reality, American education is still relatively new. Now, we all know things change extremely fast, especially with the introduction of technology. While we no longer meet at a wooden schoolhouse or use chalk and a chalkboard, well, maybe some of us still use chalk, but for most of us, we use a whiteboard or a smartboard. The goal hasn't changed much since the very beginning. What has changed to education is that now it's open to everyone, no matter what your socioeconomic class is, your race, or your religion. Schooling is now required. It's no longer an option. And what do all teachers want? We want our children to learn, and we want them to feel success. In order for us to teach, we have to understand some basic human development and concepts like nature versus nurture, as well as how kids learn. This area has been studied for a long time, and not much has changed as far as the basic foundations. Since this is a very limited time for a lesson, I'm going to jump right into the few topics I spoke about in the beginning of the presentation. First, we have social cognitive theory, which is one of the most important theories we have, in my opinion. The most important concept here is, I believe, if people just try to do random things, the human race would cease to exist. I know it sounds a little harsh, but it's true. We are able to survive by watching what other people do and imitate their behaviors. As teachers, we're role models. If we ask our students to go up in front of the classroom and teach something, guess who they're going to mimic? That's right, the teacher. They learn how teachers do things by observing them. I love in my own classroom when I ask students to get up and help teach a concept to their peers, they literally do and say exactly as I do, especially when they're pretending to reprimand a student for improper behaviors. Even when that student is me, because I like to get up there and I like to give them a little bit of the treatment that I get as I mimic their behaviors. They do exactly as I do with my hand gestures, the tone of my voice. Even as adults, we do this. We might watch a cooking show or go on Pinterest and think, wow, I'm going to try this. But if we don't succeed the first time, what do we do Next, to find instructions, we go to YouTube where we can visually observe someone completing a task or performing an action that we want to learn. Witnessing behaviors can change the way a person thinks or their cognition. Bandura, he gives us 3 determinants that affect how a person reproduces an observed behavior based on their schema. We have personal, behavioral, and environmental. Personal is affected by self-concept. If a learner believes there's no hope, he or she is going to struggle. If the learner believes that she's going to do good or he's going to do good, they're going to do better. When a person has more confidence in their ability to do something, they tend to do better. Behaviorally, the response we receive from others, if it's praise awarded for an attempted or successful behavior, it can impact the overall behavior of a person. Environmental, making the environment conducive to learning. If we set up the classroom in a way that promotes learning, we're more likely to see the results from the students. Since I mentioned self-concept, we're going to move right on into what it is. For the next topic, I want you to think about when you were a kid. It doesn't matter what grade you were in or even an exact age. Just think back and try to remember a time when you thought you were a complete failure. Maybe you didn't pass a math test, or maybe you didn't make it into the spelling bee, or let's be honest, maybe you were just rejected by the cutest person in school. Write down that moment, that word, that thought, or even that person's name that made you feel some kind of negative emotion about yourself. You can pause the video if you need to. When we move into self-concept, we're going to focus on some questions. What is it? How does it change? And how does it affect us in our classrooms? We tend to internalize not only the actions, but the opinions of other people, especially when we're younger. We sometimes let that one word or that one thought or shape the way we think about ourselves. These things happen almost daily in schools. If we even consider the rate of suicide, the amount of young people, because of bullying, we're going to most likely feel sick. Now, as adults, we know it's just the opinion of one person or a group of people, but today, things have changed drastically. Remember earlier when I mentioned technology? A child's self-concept is no longer shaped at home or just on the playground or in the neighborhood. It now has all these other outside things that shape it. You have YouTube, you have Facebook, Snapchat, and all these other hundreds of apps available to kids. No longer are the days seeing a magazine cover and daydreaming about having that hair or the eye color. For the guys in this class, I don't know what you dream about, but we all remember. Self-concept seems like it should be pretty easy to change, right? Yet it's so complex, and our kids are forming beliefs and opinions about themselves based on the environment, actions of others, things they hear, and things that they see. And unfortunately, based on the amount of items they do or don't have. The person, a child, and some adults usually know the least about is themselves. Most of what they think about who they are really comes from what other people tell them they are. In a classroom setting, praise is very important. It doesn't mean that kids don't make poor choices. Believe me, they do. But we, as teachers, we can reinforce the concept of self through positive reinforcement and praise. It's something that I myself need to work on. For example, let's say you have this child in the class. He's driving you crazy. He cannot sit still. But that child, you notice he sits still for 10 or even 15 minutes. Praise him. A lot of kids today are diagnosed with different disorders like ADD, ADHD. For a lot of kids, this translates into something is wrong with me beyond my control. The concept of self can quickly turn to thoughts of I'm not good enough, failure, or the child might feel like they're just lacking. Now, think about what you wrote down. As an adult, you are aware of whatever happened was painful, and it did hurt. But you're obviously not 7, 10, or 16 anymore, so those thoughts are not you. They do not encompass all that you are, and by now, you have probably forgotten that thing ever happened. For the kids in our classrooms, it's very real. They're living in it. Just like you can recall what you felt like, they're living it daily. And it shapes who they think they are in this world, which is why it's important for us to not only be teachers, mentors, but also cheerleaders and supporters for the kids we come into contact with. For most of these kids, they spend more time with us than they do with their own parents. So we can make a huge difference in helping them shape their own self-concept. The final topic we're going to talk about is moral development. It's a very popular concept. Piaget had his own ideas of moral development, and Kohlberg agreed with them, but he wanted to dig a little deeper. Kohlberg developed a very popular story about Heinz. After Kohlberg told the story to the children, he studied their answers. He ultimately wanted to see how moral reasoning changed as people got older. Kohlberg, although it is believed his study was flawed, he did produce some compelling results. He developed 3 levels and 6 stages. There are 2 stages per level. It is believed that only 10 to 15% of people will actually ever reach level 3. So in level 1, we learned that kids 9 and under, they don't really have a moral stance on anything. Their views, beliefs, and values all stem from 1, punishment and consequence, and 2, different people have different rules and ideas. This is something kids often learn when they first come to school. Let's say a child was at home with only his or her parents. Their only exposure they had to differing opinions came from, well, there weren't any, until they go to school. And Shelley screams out that she doesn't agree the water alone makes a plant grow. And here we have exposure to differing ideas, which means this child is now learning that they too can have an opinion. Or a differing belief. The concept of the self is changing. Stage 3, good interpersonal relationships. Most kids and people in general want to be seen as good, so they modify their behavior to conform to what is socially acceptable, so they can be seen as good. This goes right along with stage 4, maintaining social order, also known as avoiding guilt. How do we avoid guilt? We do good things, we obey the law, and we attempt to be seen as decent by society. What does this mean for us as teachers? In level 1, the children externalize meaning, and they believe, and their responses are shaped by consequences they receive from adults. So if we tell the class, you must all settle down or you're going to lose your recess, they're going to conform to those rules. Not because they like them or enjoy them, because they don't like the consequence of ignoring those rules. In level 2, they begin to internalize. So they aren't going to question, they want to be seen as good, and they also want to fit in. At this stage in the classroom, this means that something is acceptable to the group, then it is more likely to be accepted by each individual. Even if some don't agree 100%, they're going to follow the group, what the group believes, because they want to avoid guilt and judgment. For this final activity, let's once again put ourselves in the situation at some point in our lives. We've all been to a party, right? When we go to a party, the atmosphere is relaxed. We speak freely and even play games that we probably wouldn't play at work. Our reactions, responses, and activities differ slightly depending on the place or the situation we're in. Young said, we wear a mask. Now, this doesn't mean all of our morals go out the window. The foundation is there, but according to Kohlberg's second level, we will respond in a way that is acceptable to the group, and we want to be seen as good. It also says we try to avoid guilt. So while at this party, we might not do everything that the others are doing, but we will definitely be more relaxed and closer to our true selves. So as we summarize all these different things, we need to think about why all of this is important for teachers. If we begin with self-concept, hopefully you learn that the way a person feels about him or herself impacts their abilities to complete certain things. It also shapes whether a child is going to be willing to raise their hand in class. If the person's self-concept is that they are dumb, then they're not going to volunteer any information. So how can we create this safe place? By including some of things Van Der's theory supported, like creating a classroom that's conducive to learning, by praising a child when they succeed, and by teaching the other kids in the classroom to be supportive of their peers. The children are developing before our eyes, and in some ways, their ability to learn requires them to have a safe place, a place that supports good morals and good moral development. We have to be firm and have consequences, but we can also allow the students to freely express themselves and their opinions, because the classroom may be the only place that a child has to explore his opinions. Before we close, I just want you to think back about the student whose name you wrote down. You know, the ones whose parents said they're real rough to deal with at home, but then they come to class and they're an angel. All three topics I've covered contribute to what is happening with this child. One, the way the child feels about himself at home, his self-concept, can determine the behavior that is expressed. At school, the child might receive positive attention by doing something good. And maybe at home, the attention the child receives is negative. The child may feel like they want their teacher to see them as good so they can feel good about themselves. Second thing, social cognitive theory, as explained by Miller, Dollard, and Bandura, all tell us that a person can and will respond according to their environment and what is learned, accepted, or happening in each. The child at home could be modeling the behavior of other family members, while at school he models the behavior of his or her peers. Finally, moral development again is in part affected by what we're exposed to and learning to make our own moral judgments based on what is acceptable in our environments and groups we associate with. The child will attempt to avoid guilt by pleasing the teacher so the teacher sees a different child that has conformed to what is expected and accepted in the classroom. That is my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something about these topics, and I look forward to reading your replies on the forum.